And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. And so we, before the show, as we got into the show, I told you that our guest this morning was supposed to be Joy Andrews. I was worried that maybe we had some miscommunication, and thankfully she is in the studio this morning. So first, before you say hello, let me just introduce you to our audience by giving you a little bit of a bio about you. Joy is the county administrator for St. Johns County. She began her career with St. Johns County in 2006 as a budget analyst for the Office of Management and Budget. She later held the position of Director of Health and Human Services before accepting the role as Deputy County Administrator in 2015. On October 31st, 2023, the St. Johns County Board of County Commissioners selected Joy as County Administrator. Good morning, Joy.
Good morning, Brian. I apologize for the delay.
That is quite all right. So I'm just glad that you made it because I don't have to now improvise and try to fill an hour's worth of time. So very good. Thank you so much for being here. Just a variety of different questions that I wanted to ask you this morning. Some of them come from our seniors because when we knew that you were coming on the show, I reached out to some seniors and said, what would you like to ask if you were sitting here in the studio? And so some of them come from them, and some of them are just mine that I thought maybe seniors who are tuning in this morning might be interested in hearing. So just a lot of different topics, but let's start with the fact that, as you know, it's no secret, St. Johns County continues to grow. And the Jacksonville Daily Record recently reported that Advent Health of Palm Coast has purchased 11 acres on State Route 207 for about $5.7 million. And, of course, medical care options are definitely important to seniors. And so I'm just curious if maybe you have any information on what type of medical facility they're planning to build there.
I don't specifically have their plan. However, we have been having very continuous conversation related to Advent Health desire to bring services in St. Johns County. And I think what I have heard from them and their executives were that they wanted to start with primary care first. And Advent Health is very much a community-based hospital. And so they care about bringing very flexible services to different parts of the county or municipalities. And they usually expand from there. So my understanding is that on the south portion of the county, what they were planning to do was to bring primary care and some flexible services just based on their assessment of that parts of the community. And from there, I think that is probably supposed to be an anchor or stable to explore the rest of the part of the county to see what type of services they can also provide to bridge some gaps.
Well, I think it's wonderful because, the county continues to grow, more and more people are moving here. So, of course, we're going to need more medical facilities. And so I think it's great that they're coming in and, so more and more people will be able to be served and their medical needs met. So it's great to hear that news.
Right.
So, yeah. So good. So moving from that topic, recently St. Johns County was selected as the site for Florida's first Black History Museum. So I took some time and I spoke with one of our seniors who is a lifelong member of the Black community here in St. Augustine. And I asked her, what type of questions does she have about it, right? She's very excited that it's coming, but she also has some questions just out of curiosity. So maybe you can answer these, maybe you can't. And so I thought I'd ask them to you this morning. First of all, she's curious, how will the board members be chosen for the museum?
Well, I think one thing that we all have to remember, this is going to be a state museum. So St. Johns County did what we could, the best of our ability, to be selected as the site. So the next step really is the state is going to conduct a feasibility study to show the financial sustainability, to show the transportation feasibility at the location that we're proposing. At the end of the day, it is a state initiative. It's going to be a state-owned museum, Black History Museum. The county is going to play a very important partnership role with Florida Memorial University. I would imagine the selection of the board members is going to have very heavy influence from the state, if not it's in its entirety. So at this time, it's a little premature to say how the structure of the Black History Museum is going to look like. We have certainly a lot of players and partners that played huge role in getting to this point locally from St. Johns County and from surrounding areas in this region. And they have huge investment emotionally and really from the labor of love to bring all of us to this level. Just stay tuned. We are still working towards the finalization of the location. We really don't even have the award from the state yet. So it is 90% there, but we're not 100% there yet. Our St. Johns County, as myself, as my board, in local government, our job at this point is make sure that we will do what we can to urge the state to finalize their feasibility study so that we know what the next step is going to look like. And of course, the state is going to have to make some financial commitment as well. What type of museum you want to bring to St. Johns County that is worthy of the title of the Florida State Black History Museum, the size, the level of investment, the level of financial partnership. So there is a lot of unanswered questions in our head. We sort of had a roadmap on how that may look like, but we don't want to get in front of ourselves, get in front of the state before they make any decisions.
Mm-hmm. So it's really, some of these questions is really kind of too soon to have an answer for, So another question that she had is like, what would the days and hours of operation be? How much will it cost to tour it? Things like that. So probably a little too soon to answer that.
Yeah, we don't have the specific answers to programming. I can share just really on high level, conceptually, what's going to be is in the neighborhood of 100,000 square feet of, and that's, I think that's a range. I don't want it to pin down a size of the museum. There is desire to be smaller. There's desire to be bigger. And also the location in West Augustine, we're still finalizing the lease with the university. There is also a component of Performance Arts Center, which is part of the state statute. And the programming on education has huge input from the school district because it's going to be a very educational site for our K through 8. So, but to nail down the specifics, we have to wait until the award happen and the feasibility study done.
Mm-hmm. And then you get all that done, then construct the building and so forth. So I guess the question would be, is there, a year, a date that you're hoping that it might be up and running?
Well, I would say 2 years from today to have a completed site is extremely optimistic.
Okay.
So we're talking about a structure that is ranging from 50 to 100 million. And the process that is going to entail is when the state, of course, they are out of session. So the next legislative session that could potentially bring any legislative appropriation is going to be next January. And then that will take effect July of 2025. Let's just say that optimistically that did happen. Then the next step is going to be either the state is going to go through a procurement or the state and the local government is going to, in collaboration, to go through some procurement. And then that'll bring us to design, and that'll bring us to permitting, and that'll bring us to the construction, which usually a size of this facility takes probably a good part of over a year. So I would say 2 years from now is extremely optimistic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So the good news is, at least at this point in time, we know it's coming. And so,
well, we hope so.
Yeah.
We hope so. We have not, if there is going to be a state museum for Black history, it is in St. Johns County. Now, the state still has to make further commitment than just put that language in the state law.
Okay. Another question that she had that I thought was very pertinent to ask, she wants to know, will it tell the true story of Black history? For example, she brought up, the story of St. Augustine slave market, where Africans were bought and sold. So is it going to be accurate? I guess from her perspective, as someone of the Black community, she's a little bit worried that it's not going to tell it all, like it in the true, manner of what happened. So.
Of course, and I completely understand the sentiment of that. Once you have a place that you can tell the story, the people who have lived the history, who have family members who lived the history. It is all they want is to tell the true story. We can only speak for ourselves. So as long as St. Johns County, myself, our local government is involved with as much influence as we have in the programming of the artifacts, the site design, that would be nothing more that we wanted to do is to tell the true story. Again, it goes back to it is a state facility, so the programming authority on local level, how much are we going to have, is yet to see.
Mm-hmm. Are you allowed to disclose the location that you're hoping to put it?
Oh, no, yes, absolutely. It's actually being very public. We went through different sites, but it is in our application to the state. The location is, I say 214 in Holmes Boulevard. It's west of Holmes Boulevard, and it's about 2 miles from the Holmes Boulevard in West Augustine. So it's not quite on the corridor of Holmes Boulevard, and it's on 214. So, and it's the previous campus of the Memorial University. And in fact, there was an arch there. So that was kind of the location the Memorial University board members have chosen to lease with St. Johns County at this time. And we're looking at probably next a couple of weeks to finalize that lease, of course, with the condition of the location to be a final site.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fantastic. Well, looking forward to that. We're going to be coming up on our next commercial break here in just a moment, so I'll hold off on the next question because sometimes I ask the question and then the commercial kicks on, so I'm not going to do that to you. So just a moment, the commercials will be coming here, and so you've been tuning in to the St. Johns County Council on Aging Weekly Radio Show. I'm Brian Robinson, joined by Joy Andrews. We'll be right back after these commercial messages. And welcome back to the Weekly Radio Show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. This morning, I'm joined by Joy Andrews, County Administrator for St. Johns County, and asking some different questions. We were talking about the Advent Health coming to St. Johns County. We're talking about the Black History Museum coming. Next, I wanted to bring up World Golf Village. The Board of County Commissioners approved the $5.5 million purchase of all World Golf Foundation Incorporated assets. That includes the World Golf Hall of Fame, that's a 64,000 square foot multi-purpose facility, the IMAX Theater, the PGA Tour Productions Office Building, which is 32,000 square feet, the South Legacy Trail that has over 36 acres of parking lots, right-of-way areas, landscaping, and lakes. And I've had several seniors ask me if we have heard what the plans are to be developed at World Golf Village. And so I wanted to ask you that question.
Sure. I'm happy to share whatever we have done up to this point and the plan at this time. So, Brian, you're absolutely right. So we have now finally owned the Hall of Fame and IMAX. The IMAX is going to remain operation at least until next quarter, and we really don't have any plan to terminate the operation of IMAX. In next couple of months, we will close on the purchase of the PGA production building, which, like you said, it's about 30,000 square feet of commercial office space for the $5.3 million purchase sales agreement price. We're going through still the due diligence, the inspection, and really truly part of the complexity that our residents don't necessarily know, at least to the level of its complexity, is that we have to unwind a lot of deed restrictions that came with from the 90s, the economic development deal that was made between the state and PGA Tour and the Golf Foundation to bring the Hall of Fame. One of them was, it was very significant, is that those properties cannot be used for any other purpose than a museum. So, which will definitely limit the usage that we could potentially put in those properties to make it to be economic viable options for the for the residents for St. Johns County. So we are actively engaging all the parties involved in those agreements to lift essentially those restrictions so that we can put out a P3 to invite proposals to offer the uses that our residents say that they do want. Not to repeat sort of the process, just for the listeners who did not know about what we had done. So the Board of County Commissioners put out extensive public engagement, and that included surveys, that included public engagement town hall meetings, and those process resulted in a sort of a short list of a scope of what the uses that the residents potentially prefer and desire. And on top of the list, we believe it includes lifestyle, low traffic impact entertainment, low traffic impact restaurants, boutique shops, and no big box retails like the tapaquita across the street and anything that would require huge parking and transportation impact mitigation. And also we heard Performance Arts Center that was very much a top of the list of a kind of a desired use. We heard that residents want to continue to have theater like IMAX, and they want to have more of a kind of a experiential, something that will enrich their experience rather than bringing more traffic. And economic development, the right type of economic development headquarter is also something that the community wants or prefers than others. And also we heard we want to have potentially education campus. That could be something that can bring, actually the kids that we have are going to the #1 school district to stay in St. Johns County to have their secondary education just in their home county. So that's another thing that is on the list. So our plan is probably close to November and December. We will put out a P3 invitation, and so the purpose of that is really to provide a mechanism for developers, and when I say developers, that the developers who were experienced and have really record success in how to develop a master plan to revision something like this, which is really more of a kind of a town village, and to look at a repurpose. So that P3, which is a private-public partnership, and that my suspicion is that those proposals will entail partnerships with other not homeowners but property owners. We have the hotel owners, Atrium. We have the golf course, the Honor Golf. We have the retail operator and owner, which is American Commercial Realty. And we also have the master developer of the DRI initially from the 80s and 90s in Wolcott Village. So we do have a group of owners that have interest in this, not only interest, but also legal, vested legal rights in this initiative and endeavor. So I'm excited to see once we have the private-public partnership invitation out, what type of proposal we're going to receive. And the invitation is going to be very specific to be narrowed, focused on the preferred uses of what the residents have conveyed to us and to our board members. Conceptually, and this is premature to say this, conceptually is that the next step after P3, we ideally should have a master plan on the whole site of the village, and ideally the master plan that would include a large tract of the land that can be redeveloped and that's compatible with each other and to the uses of the residents' desire. But to minimum, we're talking about the 40 acres of the production building, the parking lot, the pond, and the Hall of Fame, the IMAX, and county does own also the convention center. So to minimum, we wanted to get a good footing on redeveloping those properties. So The first quarter is projected vacation time for the production, PGA production, to relocate from the Waldorf Village site to Ponte Vedra, their new fabulous new building. So that is really when we really kind of have to get the rubber meets the road. We need to figure out the two of the priorities I have. Of course, one is to have a good, viable master plan that provides the experience our residents do want. But number two is that it has to be financially sustainable. It has to be economically viable. Whatever initiatives and facilities that we bring in, the financial sustainability is going to be a huge consideration in all of that. So that's kind of the rough timeline we're looking at.
Okay, well, very good. Well, we're about to go to our next commercial break, so I have another question that I'm going to tie into that whenever we do come back from that, and that is, you can be thinking about it during the commercial break that we're about to go on, is what could Council on Aging offer there to our seniors? So we'll answer that question when we come back from these commercial breaks. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined this morning by Joy Andrews, County Administrator for St. Johns County. Before our commercial break, we were talking about World Golf Village and all the plans there. And before we went to the break, I asked you to think about the question, what could Council on Aging offer there to our seniors? And off air, we were talking about one of the ideas that we have is to offer another lifelong learning center like we do at our River House location. So I'm just curious if that's perhaps on the table for us to possibly do.
Well, absolutely. I think that the Lifelong Learning Center, and with the focus of aging population, is absolutely a fitting use for the area. We have Cascade, which is 55 plus. And I heard from our residents, they wanted to be able to do things. They wanted to be able to connect with each other without having to go too far and get on 95 and travel some other places. And we really don't have any kind of a senior programming in the area of Waldorf Village. I think it would be a huge benefit to the community. I think the opportunities probably come to sort of different phases. So like I mentioned before the commercial, that we're going through this planning process for the long-term use, and we have to do this right, because we're talking about revisioning a village that is hopefully work and thrive for the next decades for our next generations, and not only for our senior, but for our children, and when they grow older, to be a senior. We don't want to do this revisioning again, hopefully anytime soon once we're done. So we're going to take our time, make sure that we have the right partners and we have the right the uses and the right facility and the right plan to back it up. So that is something probably I would say, again, kind of go back to where we talked about Black History Museum. If I have to be extremely optimistic that to have a shovel to the ground for a new use for whatever that is 2 years from now is extremely optimistic. So we're talking about 2 years at least, a gap of what we have currently and what we're going to have in the future. As also your financial steward of St. Johns County, one thing I think about and kind of keep me up night is how do we keep that village going, financially sustainable, because we do have financial burden on maintaining not just the common area, the landscaping, and also the Hall of Fame, and also potentially in the future, near future, the production building. How do we maintain those facilities and maintain the level of service for the surrounding facilities like the retail? And they all cost money. We will be looking for interim uses as well. And ideas on the table that I have talked to different folks about is that one, it'll bring revenue, and two, it will keep the village viable with the foot traffic from our residents. So we talked about travel museum exhibitions. We talked about, we've spoken to YMCA. They had interest in summer camps or youth programming. So I think to minimum on the interim level, I would love to talk about a learning center with the focus of our senior population.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate that, and we are certainly open to be a part of it and part of the conversation as you're doing the planning. So it brings me to the next question. April of this year, the BOCC unanimously authorized the construction of 5 regional parks and community centers. And as you know, St. Johns County Council on Aging utilizes several county-owned buildings to provide the programs and services to St. Johns County residents who are 60 years or older. More and more seniors in the northwest part of the county are asking us if we're going to open a senior center in that area. And so I'm just wondering, is it possible that a community center that is going to be constructed there at the Northwest Community Park, could that serve as a senior center for that part of the county?
So that's a really good question. So the parks, which is really 4 regional parks and a renovation of Davis Park, that is existing regional park. Within those 4 new proposed parks, Shearwater Park and Greenbrier Park, as well as Nocatee Park, has a proposed community center and library in it. 2 of them is supposed to be a library hub, which essentially just means it's a smaller version of a full library. It's 10,000 square feet versus 25,000 square feet. The design concept has always been that we want to create new open meeting space, not only for supervisor of election for the early polling, the voting sites, but also for a community center that where people can actually have a open space and that can be flexible for reconfiguration for different groups to meet. And you're right, we don't really have that many locations offer that type of flexible meeting sites. So absolutely, I think COA would be a very critical partner if we are talking about programming meetings and programming programs, initiatives that fits the needs of the community.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have about 5 minutes left in our segment and our time together. So this is kind of a question, a little impromptu question that I thought of this morning that I wanted to ask you. So my role as program director for Council on Aging, I kind of view it as my way of serving the generation that raised my generation, right? It's my way of giving back to them for everything that they gave to me, right? That's why when I step into my job each day to do it, that's what's on my mind. Like, this is my way to give back to the generation that raised me. So I'm just wondering, on a personal note, right, as you think about that, what services would you like to see made available for our seniors in our county so that they can improve their quality of life? So maybe you've thought about, some different things that could be done. And just curious if there's anything like that you've thought about.
No, that's a great question. And Brian, I really appreciate the way you kind of frame how we see us as sort of the contributor to the generation that actually contributed greatly to our well-being and really the reason why we're here today. Mm-hmm. It very much jives with how I was raised as a family. My parents essentially was responsible for their parents as they get older and they needed more help. And when I live on 210, so we actually purchased a home with only one reason, because I used to live in Wokow Village area, and my parents were getting older, and we were looking for a dual unit where actually would allow for a private living, but it's still together kind of a scenario where my parents, as they get older, they can stay with us and they can still have their privacy and they can still do, their daily life without feeling like they are intermingled with another generation or 2 generations. Mm-hmm. So that's why we actually moved. We haven't really used our house for that purpose yet because they're still very active. They're still living on their own, but at least I had that plan. And, and on a personal level, I talk to friends and people around us that they all love that kind of arrangement. Most of our seniors are very viable and very active, and they want to very much be close to their children, but without sacrificing their own privacy. And as a certain stage of level, you almost have to be very close to each other. And that's why we did what we did. And I just kind of thinking from that perspective, what COA is doing and have been doing for decades for this community is exactly what it needs. Assisted living is one thing, nursing home is one thing, but for a large population of our senior members, they want to feel like they are connected, and that's what COA is doing, to provide opportunities for them to be connected with each other, and also want to, the population wants to feel that they're contributing. So COA also offers all kinds of programming opportunities for the seniors to volunteer, to be helpful wherever they can. And also they want to be celebrated with themselves, with each other. And that's what you guys do to celebrate them, have parties for the seniors. So I'm very much involved with your strategic planning process. I contributed just really my personal thoughts. I've worked with COA since I began with St. Johns County, which is 206, and have seen COA as the dominant provider for our aging population is taking a huge leadership role in shaping what kind of programming that we can do and how we can help our seniors wherever we can. So that's kind of my thought just from my personal level. But I think a continued partnership with the county and the COA is important.
Very much so. And we are very, and I just want to say on air, we are very appreciative of the relationship that we have with the county. We're so thankful for the different buildings that you provide us so that we can do the programming and services for the seniors. And I know financially you support us as well through grants and so forth. And so we're very, very thankful for that. So thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come on the radio show with us this morning. And next week, tune in. We'll have Michelle Coley and Julie Westling from the Wildflower Health Clinic joining us. Joy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity, Brian.
Have a great day, everybody.